Welcome to the AI in Accessibility podcast. I'm Bhagya from Envision, and for today's episode, we're joined by Jonathan Ward from the Thomas Pocklington Trust in the UK. Jonathan, I'm super happy to have you on board for this episode of the podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So, Thomas is somebody that we've been wanting to get on the show for quite some time, and someone who has over 40 years of experience now in the blind and low vision industry, as well as a wealth of knowledge regarding employment opportunities and employment initiatives in the UK, which is also coincidentally the role that Jonathan plays at the Thomas Pocklington Trust. Just for the sake of my own potential mispronunciation and word jumbling, I'm going to refer to it as TPT moving forward. And TPT have been supporting the blind and partially sighted community in the UK since 1958. And they play a number of different roles across employment, advocacy, and generally being an entity that's been looking out for the blind and low vision community in the UK. But Jonathan, let me pass it on to you. I'm sure the listeners would love a few more details about yourself, your experience in the blind and low vision space, as well as a brief introduction to the Thomas Pocklington Trust, because we will be diving deeper into it over the span of this conversation.
I'm Jonathan Ward. I've not quite got to the 40 years yet, so it's nearly 40 years of working with blind and partially sighted people. My very first job was working with a Kurzweil reading machine, which some of you will be familiar with, which was the size of a photocopier back in the day in the 1980s. We used to put your book in and it used to read out loud. So I used to teach people how to use that piece of technology. And that's the sort of piece of technology you can find on your mobile phone now. And what I would say is that my specialism over the years has been working to teach people to become independent. So I am a mobility worker, so I've taught people to move around outside. I've taught people to cook, and obviously I've supported to people with sort of all aspects of their wider independence. Now I find myself working for Thomas Pocklington Trust in the employment team, and my role is to work with people to encourage them to find ways into employment. But as Badia's already said, that we have a wider offer. So I have colleagues in an education team who are very much supporting people on their educational journey. So that's students over the age of 11 and wherever that educational journey takes them, they're there to support them. I have colleagues in the engagement teams who are looking at making sure the built environment is as good as it can be for people with sight loss. And we're also looking at sort of the wider health environment as well. So that's pathways. So when you're first diagnosed with sight loss, how you then progress through to get the services that you actually need. So we're a fairly far-reaching organisation across the UK. But as I say, I'm in the employment team, and that's what I'm pretty much focused on at this moment in time.
Amazing. So I think you've already kind of touched on a few different points that we'll dive deeper as we move along in the conversation. And the focus of this episode will be around employment once again, but of course focused on our listeners from the UK. But before we dive into the employment side of things, because I know that TPT has done a lot in the last few decades, really. I want to quickly kind of touch on the advocacy side of things and the campaigning aspect of TPT's operations. Can you tell us a little bit about those efforts? I know that it's not your kind of focus area, but just so our listeners also understand besides just doing the services aspect, the role that TPT has played over the past few years in making sure that regulations and the right decisions are being made in favor of the blind and low vision community. Can you tell us a little bit about what exactly the TPT's role has been on that front?
Okay, so we have Sight Loss Council. So I guess our model of campaigning is very much to use the experiences and the shared knowledge of blind and partially sighted people. So we have Sight Loss Council, so have groups of people coming together, working together, led by our engagement managers, and they'll take on different campaigns. So, for example, the one campaign that immediately springs to mind, they've been working with a large chain store in the UK to make sure that if someone like myself were to walk in, then I'm going to get the best possible experience as a partially sighted person, so that I'm, that the customer service, gives me the respect, gives me the time, understands why I might need to ask why I need some labels read, why I need more information, that I might need more support in a cafe area in their shop. So it's that practicalities of looking at that. And another scheme which is looking at the moment is looking at bus drivers. So they're looking at things like why buses need to talk to you. So it's important to make sure that all the bus journeys are sort of audio described, but not only that, it's that the bus driver actually stops, recognizes you as a blind and partially sighted person if you're carrying a white cane, understands that possibly not all blind and partially sighted people use white canes, that everybody's different, that they don't drive off while you're still trying to find your seat, that possibly they help you find a blank seat. So again, it is those practicalities of living and traveling independently to make sure that that's the best possible experience. Because unfortunately, experience tells us that lots of people don't engage, don't go along once they lose their sight or have difficulty seeing. They don't go to shops, they don't engage in society, don't travel on the bus, because it can be scary, it can be frightening. So again, it's to try and make those experiences as good as they possibly can be. We've also I've got colleagues working in theatres, to make sure that theatres are accessible, to make sure that plays and cinema and so forth are sort of audio described, or actually the front of house staff can actually understand that some people can't see anything at all in the dark, so they need to be guided to their seats and looked after. So again, it's those sort of campaigns. When it comes to employment, then we're looking at trying to sort of break the barriers down to get people into employment. So I guess the big figures for me are that only 25% of blind and partially sighted people are actually in employment. And interestingly, I think in one of your previous podcasts, it's a very similar figure in the United States and in other parts of the world. It's quite a tiny proportion of people of working age who are blind and partially sighted are actually in employment. And what I learned recently, certainly in the UK, and I'm guessing it'll be replicated elsewhere, that if you have the severe sight loss, so you see nothing at all or possibly only light, so we're talking about people who see light only or nothing at all. If you fall into that category, then only 1 in 10 of people with that sort of level of vision are actually employed. And actually, so that means that there's lots of people out there with many skills and great potential, and they're not being able to work. So we'd be campaigning towards government to say, look, we need some simple changes. We need for employers to recognise this fact. We need for employers and people just to recognise that simple changes in the office can be made to allow people to work, that computers are accessible, and indeed it's possible for blind and partially sighted people to work alongside everybody else. So that's sort of a snapshot of our sort of campaigning, really. Nice.
No, that makes complete sense. And it's interesting, while you were describing it, I was just thinking to myself that, these efforts happen kind of in the background, like as even people people who are quite closely involved in the blind and low vision space, you don't really see these efforts happening. You just see the results of it happening, and we commend the administrations that take those steps. But like it's really refreshing to kind of see that organizations like the Thomas Pocklington Trust have been kind of doing this for so long, and that all of that is resulting in more opportunities. Like you said, the numbers are still low, but hopefully with the advancement of assistive technology and just the knowledge of these initiatives expanding, that those numbers will go up and we will see more opportunities for the community. But we'll get to that in just a bit. Before we move on, because you did give us an excellent segue into some of the employment support services that your team offers, but maybe very, very briefly, could you tell us about the inception of the Thomas Pocklington Trust and who is Thomas Pocklington?
Okay, so if you go onto YouTube, there's a really good video on Thomas Pocklington's story, which is really quite insightful. That's if you look at the Thomas Pocklington YouTube channel, it's there. But basically, Thomas Pocklington was, I guess, probably about 100 years ago. He was an entrepreneur, property owner, developer. I can't say this word. Philanthropist. It's a philanthropist, and he suffered an accident which temporarily and was blinded temporarily, and I guess, and then what he did, he said, I want to do something for blind people. So he set up a trust, Thomas Pocklington Trust. So it's a bequeath, so he bequeathed a certain amount of money and property and what have you. And that enabled our trust to be born. But basically our sort of, our remit is to make the world better for blind and partially sighted people. So that's what his vision was, and that's why he left the money to make that happen. That's
awesome. So what I'm going to do is in the description of the podcast, we will link the video so our listeners can give that a watch and listen as well. So thanks so much, Jonathan. I knew that there is probably listeners who are wondering, okay, who is Thomas Pocklington? So I wanted to kind of quickly touch on that. So thanks so much. So now we're going to move on to the core of the discussion that we wanted to touch on today, which is TPT's employment support services, which is a team that you lead. And when we had our initial chat, you mentioned a bunch of services that your team provides to prospective applicants. Do you mind giving us a quick run through of all of the different services the TPT employment support team provides at this time?
Yeah, but firstly, I should just say I don't lead the team. I have a bot. so just to clear up, so I have many colleagues, including a really good boss. So so just to avoid getting in any trouble, I would say that the sort of things that we do. So I've got an excellent team of colleagues who will look at providing support with CV writing, with cover letter writing, with interview skills, with form filling. We are able to outsource. We've got colleagues who are coaches, so they're sort of life coaches, and what they will look at doing is helping people set the direction of travel. So just understanding what they really want to do, what they want to think about, where they want to go in their life, and I think that's a useful part. We've currently got a scheme of mentors. So we've got a group of blind and partially sighted people who've agreed to be mentors. Most of whom have been working for a long time, and they've been connected to people who are finding their way into employment or new to living with sight loss. So they're acting as mentors, as peer mentors. And I guess myself and my colleague, we are looking at sort of technical support. So we don't do so much training, but we encourage and provide information as to what is available, and to look at different technologies to support people. We will also help people with, we have a scheme in the UK called Access to Work. So for many blind and partially sighted people moving into employment, what they can get is support from a physical person to do the job. So it might be that you might need, if you were teaching, you might need someone who could just keep an eye on the class, just sort of say someone's got their hand up at the back, or someone's got up and is moving around. So not doing the job for you, but very much acting as your eyes. That might be one thing that the Access to Work could sort. Access to Work might also provide you with equipment. So again, you mentioned things like screen readers, which aren't cheap. So the sort of technologies that enable blind and partially sighted people to do Access to Work can actually support people with that sort of equipment. So we would help people with their claims, and because quite often it's quite difficult for people to know what they want, what's available, and what they can ask for. So we would look at that sort of thing. I guess the other thing, probably the jewel in the is we have an internship program whereby we work with employers from the sight loss sector and wider. So we work with companies like Channel 4 and others, and they have interns. So we support with some of the salary, and they support the salary. It's a proper job. It's a 9-month position. So the person is doing a role. So they're learning how to work. They're fulfilling a useful function within that organisation that they've joined, and we add in value. So we're looking at providing training, things like presentation skills. They're looking at a recognised project management qualification at this moment in time. So it's a rounded package, because I think what we touched on is it's hard to get into work, and it's hard to get work experience. So this provides that a stepping stone into full-time employment. And as I understand it, when I asked this morning, about 85% of all of those who've gone through an internship are in full-time employment.
That's an incredible number, because I think it's exactly what you mentioned. While you were describing the process, I was thinking this is very much an end-to-end process, right? From the point of writing your CV all the way to kind of getting those first 6 to 9 months of employment, like in the bag, just understanding the processes within the employer. I think from there, you're giving them the best possible chance of success moving into the future. And I want to kind of dive a little bit deeper into the internship program in just a moment, because I think a lot of the stuff that you mentioned goes like hand in hand with our own experience with Envision for Enterprise. But before I do that, I'm sure there are listeners who are curious to understand, like, are these services that any person who is blind or has like significantly low vision, can they anyone in the UK, can they reach out to TPT and your team? Is there any sort of payments or any sort of fees involved with it? Like, how does that process work? Like in kind of action or in operation?
Yeah. So all our services are effectively free to the user. So it's free to the user. We wouldn't be turning anyone away. But for example, in the employment service, what we'd be looking for is to support people towards sort of either paid or unpaid work, because that's very much what we're about. So obviously that's the only limitation. We would be saying, actually, look, we're going to support and help you on your journey. So as long as there was a link towards paid or unpaid work, then we're going to assist that person. So there's very few restrictions, and obviously the person has to be blind or partially sighted. Not necessarily registered, but just have a permanent sight loss.
Understood. And we'll put this in the description as well. But what's the best way to reach your team if it's somebody who is kind of within the scope of the program? Yeah,
so probably the simplest way is to go to our website, which is www.pocklington.org.uk. And there's a referral form to the employment team in the employment section, and you can just fill in a few details and just email the form over, and then we'll be back in touch. I don't know it, I should know it, but there's a phone number on that webpage as well. You can phone up and someone will chat to you. It's the same again if it's in education, because obviously I talk about employment, but obviously there's an education team. So again, got colleagues giving fantastic support and advice to those to students, whether that be in further education or higher education or coming to the UK to do education with sight loss. We'll be looking at providing excellent information there as well. Yeah, so it's probably the best place to start with the web page and then go from there.
Awesome. Because of course I knew the fact that being an endowed charity, if I'm not mistaken, that these are services that you don't really charge for. So honestly that makes it like such an incredible initiative for the community. And like our hope after this conversation is that more people know it and are able to reach your team, because I think this is the segue for us to jump more into the internship program, because since 2021, Envision has also been offering Envision for Enterprise as kind of an extension of our technology, which is where we work with employers who employ people who are blind or have low vision, in providing our technology and support in order to make their experience at the workplace and potentially their overall productivity and happiness at the workplace better. And I think I mentioned this in my previous podcast episode with Dr. Michelle McDonald. One thing that we experienced was that there are a lot of employers that want to be employers of people who are blind and low vision, but really lack the knowledge and the necessary support systems internally to be able to really provide an equitable experience for their blind and low vision employees. And I think, again, that's where an organization like TPT really shines for me, which is that what you just mentioned, the fact that you guys provide this support system from internship all the way up to 9 months in itself is incredible. But the fact that you also pay a part of that salary just means that it becomes a bit of a no-brainer for the employers themselves to kind of take you up on this. But I'm curious to know kind of how that experience has been. Like, when did TPT introduce this internship program? And can you kind of walk us through a little bit of that history, some of the challenges that you guys faced in kind of getting to the point where it's at today?
Okay, so again, I'll caveat this with my answer by saying that I sit on the outside and watch the fantastic work that the intern team do, because you've got a head of internships and he's got two guys that work with him, Charlie and Gareth. So it's Josh, Charlie, and Gareth, and they do a fantastic job. So I'm going to speak. I'll speak for them, but I might miss out some of the details. So I have had interns myself. So I've managed and supported a couple of interns. So I had my first one about 7 years ago. So in a very small way, we've had a sort of it's been I don't know what the word is. It's been a sort of slow burn into the intern process. So we were having 5 or 6 interns a year, something of that nature, up until 2 or 3 years ago, and then possibly 2 years ago. Then we've just sort of pushed the program really hard. So like this, as I think I might have mentioned already, we've got 31 interns. So in the last month and a half, we've had 31 interns start their training or start engage. So yeah, the program's been rolling very slowly for about 6 or 7 years, but all of a sudden it's really taken off. And it's the fact that we're now moving outside of the sight loss sector. It's not like it's as I said, companies like Channel 4. we're moving it further and further into the sort of mainstream sort of commercial enterprises. And I guess part of that is, like you say, is it's about, for us as an organization, going out to those employers and saying, look, you can have someone who's blind or partially sighted in your organization, and it doesn't have to be a big deal. You know, a few simple changes, a few slightly different ways of working, and you can have someone in your organization who's really productive, who brings something different, fresh ideas. And so again, part of our roles as the employment team, as the internships team, is very much about educating and explaining how employers can support, and just on a very simplistic note, is just saying to the wider working public, actually, blind and partially sighted people can work. They can do the same jobs that everyone else can do, because it's those sort of barriers, it's those sort of stigmas that we just need to break down.
No, absolutely. And this is also kind of what our kind of overarching goal was when it came to Envision for Enterprise, which is exactly what you said, that people from the community can more or less do any type of job with just a little bit of knowledge and support that needs to be provided to them. And globally, there's so many success stories, and like you said, like Channel 4, I'm super happy to see that these big name organizations are also really taking this necessary step forward. One thing again that we realized in our process was that a lot of the support that was provided when we spoke to these employers was sometimes just limited to the screen reader or a few other what I would refer to as introductory accommodations. But what we were always stressing for the employers' understanding is that employment happiness rather is not just what's on the screen, and it's not just productivity. So when we work with them and we kind of provided the Envision Glasses, for instance, one thing that we found that it was doing for our users was that now outside of their screen, when they close their laptop and they go for lunch with their colleagues, they're able to kind of understand the environment, understand the workplace, where things are. They're able to go to the cafeteria, check the menu, independently, and really have that experience. And in a way, what your team within this program is doing is giving the employees and the interns the opportunity to have the necessary time and support to get all of these same experiences, right? Understanding the layout of the workspace, like knowing where things are, building that kind of visual map in their heads, and like being ready to be fully independent after the period of the program ends. Do you, from your experience speaking with your colleagues, was this something that was a significant hurdle? And in general, what were the challenges that the trust faced when it came to really rolling out the program? Because if you guys are now handling upwards of 30 interns a month, that means that your team must be quite large. So I'm very curious, because I know we haven't spoken about the numbers before, but 30 like concurrent.
Okay. So let's be clear. So it's 30. So we have intakes. So if you can imagine, it's like an intern intake.
Right.
So that there'll be about. So this is our I think I've done. This will be about our largest ever intake of 30 plus interns, and they start effectively almost like a school year. So they'll start in sort of July, and they'll run their 9 months through from that July, September time, October, whenever it is, and so we'll have them in place from now until for the next 9 months, and then hopefully another 30 or 40 people will be coming up behind them with. But obviously, in that time, not only have the interns got to be supported, but my colleagues have got to go out. They've got to find new, fresh placements for the new people to promote them. but you're right. I think so. So you're exactly right. It's those barriers. It's those small barriers. It's things like how you make your coffee, how you sort of get up and carry a coffee cup across the office. How you do those things are as important as learning how to do that. Is as important as actually doing your job. Learning how to sort of make your point in a meeting. Because if you can't see visual clues, how do you turn take? How do you manage a Teams meeting or a Zoom meeting or whatever virtual meeting? When do you take your turn? When do you jump in? How do you make your point? These are sort of things that would come up, and these are sort of things that the interns would be supported with, and other people that we'll be working with as well. So it's those sort of things. And I guess probably one of the wider issues is that we're looking at, and possibly that maybe with some of the more creative solutions, which we'll talk about later, come onto, it's things like it's for younger people, how you get work experience, because work experience is difficult for most young people. But if you can't see, how do you sort of fit into a workplace? So opportunities for sort of work experience for sort of young disabled children or young disabled adults are very few. So quite often what we're finding is that people come to the intern program, come to the employment team, and have very limited understanding of what the workplace is and how to interact with it. So these are sort of issues that we're facing.
I think that's completely understandable, right? It's already amazing the work that the trust is doing, but it's also completely understandable that there will be some gaps. But I feel like from what you've told us, the trust is in a really good position now to bridge that gap as well, because you have the education team that provides education all the way up to I believe it's like higher education. Is that correct?
Well, we don't provide the education, but we support people. So when you go, exactly. So if someone goes to university, there's parallels with employment, because obviously you've got to be able to, you sit in a lecture and you've got to be able to find a way of efficiently take notes. You've got to manage your interactions. So again, there's parallels with the educational team. We'll be doing quite a lot of parallels with what we're doing in the employment team. But yeah.
Yeah, and I suppose at this point, like, it seems that you have a great cadence going on the employment side of things, and I feel like once your teams have a bit more bandwidth, it seems like just a matter of including a piece in the middle between kind of completing your education and then really understanding the dynamics of kind of finding employment and what kind of experience needs to be bridged between those two parts of, significant parts of their lives. But I feel like it is a completely understandable aspect that the trust will most likely address in the coming years as well. So now that we've kind of spoken about the internship program, I have one last request, because I think the program itself is incredible, but I'd love to know like a little bit more about who these employers are, because I think we need to also shine a spotlight on the employers that are willing to take the step. For us, it is something that is necessary and that basically every employer should be open to, but we need these early adopters who are willing to take that step. You've mentioned Channel 4. Are you in a position to kind of tell us a few more of the organizations and companies that your team is working with right now?
I would say to people, go to the website, and I'm sure a lot of this, there's on the website there will be lots. If they're not there now, there will be lots of stories coming up, so people will be able to read individual stories. And I think there's quite a lot of films and short videos on the website with the interns telling their stories. So that's probably a really good way of doing it. But off the top of my head, there's a number of organisations that are for blind and partially sighted people up and down the country that have interns. So I know the Kent Association for the Blind have an intern off the top of my head. There's a story I think on the website of a really powerful piece of work that's been completed by an intern at Zap Vision, looking at accessible QR codes. We've got Seeable Holidays have got an intern. And then Real Sam have had it, which I think is it Real. I call them Real Sam, so they're up really. Yeah. So again, looking at the in your pocket and other devices. So again, there's a real mixture of sight loss and sight loss charities and wider. Oh, and then that. So just say then NHS as well. So we've got people placed within the National Health Service as well. So yeah, a real mixture.
That's great. And as we kind of wrap up this part of the conversation, finally, I believe if an employer themselves would like to work with TPT, they can also reach out to you via the website. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, it's all. So I should have said that we call our internship program Get Set Progress, and there's a Get Set Progress program. It's all on the website, and people can read all about it there. They can just and sign up if they want to be an employer. Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, we've got a few more minutes left, and I kind of want to end on a bit of like an open chat around AI. And I know that like AI is, a very like intriguing, potentially, life-changing technology, but also comes with, certain challenges and fears attached to it. And I think both of these aspects are completely, validated. There are incredible applications of AI, but there's also potentially a lot of challenges associated with it. I'm curious to know both your personal view on how AI will kind of play a part in the blind and low vision space, and also, what is there any type of regulatory like challenges or initiatives that the trust is working on right now in preparation for kind of the next wave of AI technology?
I don't think there's any sort of regulatory challenges or anything we're looking at this precise moment in time. But I could be wrong about that, but I don't think so. I think what everyone is doing is sitting back and looking at the potential. And the huge potential that AI brings to the lives of blind and partially sighted people. I think for me, obviously, anything that you can talk to and interact with at a human level, I think, or a pseudo-human level, I think it is really intriguing and really clever. So I think the fact that you can just get answers quickly, because obviously however good you are with a screen reader, with magnification software, you can strip information quickly with AI assistance. You can get information quickly and easily from the internet and get accurate. I mean, I know AI makes mistakes and it gives you wrong information, but you can get lots of information very, very quickly and very, very easily. Information that would probably take you quite a lot longer to pull out, if you're doing it in more traditional ways with a screen reader. So I think there's some really good benefits there. I think the fact that AI can now tell you what's around you, what you're looking at, can interpret things for you, I think is really intriguing. So I think there's lots of possibilities.
No, you're absolutely right, Jonathan. And it's interesting because like this was just something right before we jumped on the recording. I mentioned to Jonathan that, hey, I'm going to shoot out a question at the very end just to ask your opinion about AI. And incidentally, what you just mentioned, Jonathan, is very kind of similar to our thesis when it came to introducing Ally. It's something, of course, that has become a natural evolution of Envision's own technology. But for us, we've been kind of quite fortunate to be in this AI space for the past 6 years, and having had the opportunity to, interact with the developers of these models like Google and Meta over the years, is exactly what you say, which is that AI gives the ability to kind of take the functionality of assistive technology to the next level in a way that I think a lot of the time-related aspects can be addressed by just being able to like ask a question and get the response in a very personalized fashion as well. And I think one other aspect that we've seen is also that, for the longest time, assistive technology has been focused on being functional, which is, of course, the first and most important aspect of it. But now AI gives the opportunity for the assistive technology to also be fun. So, I say it puts the fun in functional. But it's exactly what you say. Even for us, we are slowly trying to expand the impact of Ally across our user base. And yeah, we also see a lot of different opportunities for AI to be able to influence and increase opportunities for the blind and low vision community in the workspace as well. So with that, Jonathan, we are just coming to the end of our time. But before we wrap it up, I want to kind of give the floor to you one last time to maybe mention anything that you'd like our listeners to check. Of course, the website we've spoken about. We've spoken about your TPT services, from CV writing to internship opportunities and the program itself. So yeah, the floor is yours, Jonathan. Anything at all that you want to talk about, go ahead.
I would also say that if people would like to be, just like to talk to us. I mean, we're happy to talk to anyone. If anyone's got any ideas, anyone thinks we could be doing things differently, doing things better, anyone's got any new technologies they want to share or tell us about, or new ways, or just phone up. We never mind talking to anyone if they think they can help blind and partially sighted people.
Amazing. Jonathan, thank you so much for sharing your insights, telling us about TPT and the Trust's work over the years. It's honestly incredibly inspiring stuff. And the fact that this is all provided basically at no cost for the community makes it honestly one of the most incredible initiatives that I can think of across the world. So huge props to you and your team. I'm looking forward to hearing more about TPT's initiatives coming into the future. So for anyone listening in, please drop in at the TPT website. So that is pocklington.org.uk, and you will find a wealth of information on the website regarding all of the different aspects and services that we discussed today. Jonathan, thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Amazing.